You ever seen someone flip through a textbook like it's a comic book and somehow still ace the exam? It almost feels like cheating, right? Like they've got some kind of secret brain upgrade the rest of us missed out on. But here's the truth. It's not magic. It's not some superhuman IQ boost. It's just strategy. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly how to study so fast, it actually feels like you're hacking the system. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, sure. I've heard all the study hacks before. Pomodoro this, flashcards that. But trust me, this is different because most people don't actually understand how learning works. Schools never teach us how to learn, just what to learn. And that's the problem. If you don't know how your brain absorbs information best, you're basically trying to download a movie over dial-up. Slow, painful, and completely unnecessary. Let's start with a simple question. Why do most people take forever to study? It's not because they're slow learners. It's because they're using outdated, inefficient methods. Rereading notes, highlighting every other line, writing things out 100 times. Yeah, those feel productive, but they're actually some of the worst ways to learn. They give you the illusion of studying without actually locking the information into your brain. It's like filling a leaky bucket. You keep pouring in water, but nothing really stays. So, what actually works? The answer is active learning. The more your brain has to work to recall something, the stronger the memory becomes. It's kind of like a muscle. If you don't challenge it, it doesn't grow. And that's the key difference between people who spend hours struggling to remember things and those who breeze through material like it's second nature. Alright, so here's where it gets good. The first trick, stop memorizing, start questioning. Instead of just reading a fact and trying to force it into your head, ask yourself, why is this true? How does it connect to something I already know? Your brain is wired for connections, not isolated facts. When you relate new information to something familiar, it sticks way faster. For example, let's say you're trying to remember a history date. Instead of just drilling, the French Revolution started in 1789 over and over. Think about it like this. What else was happening around the world at the time? What led to it? If you can tell yourself a quick story about the event, boom, it's in there for good. Your brain loves stories. That's why you can remember random movie plots from years ago, but forget what you studied last night. Another game changer. Speed up your learning with the 80-20 rule. Not all information is equally important. The trick is to focus on the 20% of material that gives you 80% of the results. How do you find that? Easy. Look at past exams. Listen to what your teacher keeps repeating and pay attention to the chapter summaries. The big concepts drive everything else. If you master those first, the smaller details will make a lot more sense. But here's where most people mess up. They think they understand something just because they read it once or twice. That's where the Feynman Technique comes in. Named after physicist Richard Feynman, this method is pure gold. You take a concept, pretend you're teaching it to a 5-year-old, and explain it in the simplest way possible. No jargon, no fancy terms. Just plain, simple logic. If you get stuck, that's a sign you don't actually understand it yet. Go back, break it down, and try again. Do this, and you'll never just kinda know something, you'll own it. Now, let's talk about memory, because let's be real. What's the point of studying fast if you forget everything a week later? That's where spaced repetition comes in. If you've ever crammed for a test, you already know how this works the wrong way. Study like crazy, pass the test, forget everything immediately. But if you space out your reviews, day 1, then again a few days later, then a week later, you trick your brain into thinking, hey, this keeps showing up, must be important. And boom, long-term retention. I remember back in school, I had this friend who never seemed to study. Dude would show up, skim through his notes for like 10 minutes, and then walk out with an A. It used to drive me crazy. So one day, I straight up asked him, what's your secret? And he just laughed and said, I don't study. I test myself. That's when it hit me. The reason he remembered everything so well wasn't because he was reading more. It was because he was retrieving more. He'd look at a question, try to answer it from memory, then check if he was right. Every wrong answer showed him exactly what he needed to focus on. No time wasted. That's when I switched things up. Instead of passively reviewing notes, I started quizzing myself constantly. Flashcards, practice tests, even just covering up parts of a page and trying to recall what was there. And let me tell you, it worked like crazy. Studying went from this endless, exhausting process to something that actually felt kind of fun. because every time I tested myself and got something right, it felt like leveling up in a video game. My brain was engaged, and when your brain is engaged, you learn so much faster. Now, let's be real. None of this means you can just snap your fingers and instantly absorb knowledge like a supercomputer. But what it does mean is that studying doesn't have to be slow, painful, or frustrating. If you study smart, actively, efficiently, and with the right techniques, you can slash your study time in half and remember way more. So, next time you sit down to study, ditch the highlighters. Skip the mindless rereading. Instead, ask questions, make connections, teach it to yourself like you're explaining it to a kid. Test yourself constantly, and above all, have fun with it. Because once you crack the code, studying stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like a cheat code for life. And hey, if you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. But wait, there's more. Because if you really want to supercharge your learning speed, you've got to master state-dependent learning. Ever noticed how you can recall a song lyric perfectly when you hear the beat, but struggle to remember it on its own? That's because your brain ties memory to context. So, if you study in the same conditions you'll be tested in, same time of day, same environment, you'll recall information much faster. And if you want to take it even further, use multisensory learning. Read your notes out loud, walk around while reciting concepts, or even record yourself explaining key ideas and listen back later. The more senses you engage, the stronger the memory imprint. It's like leaving a deeper footprint in wet cement instead of just dusting sand with your fingertips. So now that you know all these strategies, let's talk about the most important part, actually using them. Because let's be honest, it's easy to watch a video, get pumped up, and then go right back to studying the old, ineffective way. But here's the thing, none of this works if you don't apply it. Start small. Pick just one method, maybe the Feynman Technique, maybe active recall, and try it today. Don't wait for the perfect time to start. There is no perfect time. The best way to improve is to jump in, test these methods for yourself and see what sticks. And don't worry about getting it all right from the start. Learning how to learn is just like learning anything else. It takes a bit of practice. But once you start seeing results, once you realize you can cut your study time in half and still remember more than before, it becomes addictive. Suddenly, studying isn't this exhausting grind. It's a game, and you're playing to win. And remember, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the one who learns smarter. The one who uses strategy instead of just brute force. That's how you turn studying into something that actually feels easy. So here's my challenge for you. Try this for just 1 week. Swap out passive studying for active learning. Stop rereading and start testing yourself. Teach what you learn and see how fast things start clicking. Because I promise you, once you get the hang of this, you'll never go back.